Well, Jean Monnet is known as the founding father of Europe. There's many founding fathers. There's a list of founding fathers, but I do believe that when someone refers to just the founding father of Europe, immediately it is Jean Monnet who comes to mind. And it was in this place at the Jean Monnet house in Aujaret, in France, where we are, where the first blueprint of the founding text of the European communities was drafted, the Schuman Declaration. So he was the personality behind that text, and that was day one of European unity and in real facts. But Monnet, we have to say that he was important. He was a very influential person throughout his whole life. World War I, in the interwar period, World War II, and then even after the Schuman Declaration and the first European communities, he created the Committee of Action for the United States of Europe. And for another 20 years, he was quite old at the time. He continued the task for European unity, this time with free hands without having to be too politically correct. And then we could say also that he was instrumental in bringing about the first enlargement of the European communities exactly 50 years ago. And he died a few months before the first European elections, the first elections to the European Parliament. And he knew that that was coming, so we can say that he passed away in a moment when he was relieved that a new generation was taking over and was continuing the work that he had started so successfully. Jean Monnet tried and succeeded to implement something that was unique in history, which was to move from a model of cooperation. We know that over time, over the centuries, countries, besides making war to each other, on occasion they would cooperate, they would help each other. But he understood that that was not enough. That what was needed, especially after the bloodiest war of all times, World War II, what was needed was to start a new paradigm, a new model in international relations, and that was integration. What is integration? Well, integration, contrary to cooperation, is not just helping each other, is not knowing at all where the interests of one side or the other side begin or end. It's a total merging of resources, of capabilities, of assets, of know-how. So there's a total blurring between the initial components of that integration. And that was the revolutionary idea that Monnet put forward in the Schuman Declaration, and then that he managed to develop over time, at least in the crucial years of 1950 through early 1955. So 5 years of intense work, or he was in the front line. And we have to remember also that he always preferred to be in the backstage because he thought that he was more efficient there, that he would be more resilient, more resistant to possible criticism, possible undermining of his own work. But at that moment, he really needed to be at the forefront. And even when he resigned from the leadership of the first European community, he continued his work, and he continued basically spreading the word, if I can say so, of the benefits of integration. And he managed to rally around that goal, around that task, an incredible amount of people, very influential in their own countries. And that's why we still remember today Jean Monnet as one of the most innovative leaders ever. Well, that's a very interesting story. We have to set ourselves in year 1945, just after World War II. He had been in Washington, D.C. Before that, also he had been in London all the time, like helping the Allies. He had to leave France because France was an occupied country, but he never stopped fighting or making a big effort on behalf of the Allies, regardless of the country where he was. In the U.S., then he came after having helped Roosevelt, notably President Roosevelt, and he wanted a place to be really close to Paris, but not in the middle of all the busy life of Paris. And then he had some relatives not far from Augerais, where we are, 3 kilometers from here in the town of Les Menuls, the Chaumet family, also known because they have a famous jewelry company store in Paris. And those cousins draw his attention on this house, which at the time belonged to a Swedish doctor, Ivan Bratt, who wanted to leave the country of France after his wife had died in the bombings during World War II. So that's how the deal was done between the Swedish doctor and Monnet. And by the way, that Swedish doctor was one of the introductors of the limitation of alcohol consumption in Sweden. And as we know, Monnet was born into a family of cognac producers. So it is interesting also that this paradox of like one, of limiting the consumption of alcohol and the other one like selling cognac. At least that was the starting of his career. And then here in Augerais, many people came to see Monnet over the years. So he lived here for a total of 34 years. I'd say roughly the last third of his life, a very productive moment in his life or period of his life. And we have to mention Eleanor Roosevelt having dined here, President Eisenhower with his family. By the way, they donated some rose bushes that are still there with the names of Eisenhower and Mamie Eisenhower, the wife of President Eisenhower. Robert Schuman, of course, and here actually this is something that in our exhibition that we propose our visitors. Our visitors can see the exact moment where Monnet and Schuman were meeting in the garden, discussing the aftermath of the Schuman Declaration. So just to give a sense of that, of the fact that everything began here when we talk about the European integration.